Okay, so let's kick this explainer off with a word you probably use all the time without even thinking about it. It's one of those words that just feels, well, fundamental. It just makes sense. And yep, that's the word sense. If you look it up in the Simple English Wiktionary, you get a really clear definition. Any basic ability or understanding. Like a sense of humor, or a sense of direction, or just good old common sense. And you've probably heard it used exactly like this. She uses good sense when choosing her friends. It's super clear, it's direct, it gets the job done. Pretty simple, right? Well, that's where things start to get really interesting. Because the simplicity of this word, it's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. It's actually part of a much bigger, fascinating story about the English language itself. So, let's look at our source material, which is the dictionary page itself. At first glance, it looks totally normal, just like any other definition you'd find online. But if you look a little closer, tucked away on that page is a really interesting clue. It's something you could easily scroll right past, but it's the whole reason we're here. And there it is, right there. It says, sense is on the Basic English 850 list. That one little sentence is our key. It unlocks this entire story. Which, of course, leads to the really obvious question, what on earth is the Basic English 850 list? Well, Basic English is basically a stripped-down, simplified version of English. It was created with one very specific goal in mind, to be an easy-to-learn tool for clear communication all over the world. And get this, the entire system is built on just 850 words. That's it. Not 8,500, not 85,000, just 850 core words, each one carefully picked to do a ton of heavy lifting. And the thinking behind it is actually pretty brilliant. The goal was to make it super easy for learners to pick up. It had to be crystal clear for global communication. And to do that, you need words that are incredibly versatile. And you have to get rid of all the confusing stuff like complex grammar and idioms. It's all about getting the most meaning out of the fewest words. So here's the light bulb moment. When we go back and look at that dictionary page, we realize its simplicity is the whole point. The page isn't missing anything. Its simplicity is the message. It's written in the very spirit of Basic English. Okay, so let's circle all the way back to our word, why sense? I mean, out of the hundreds of thousands of words in English, what makes this one so special? Why did it make the final cut for the 850 list? And this right here is the reason. It's a total powerhouse of versatility. Sense can be a noun, right? Like having common sense. But it can also flip around and become a verb, describing an action or a feeling. For instance, you could say, I sensed you were upset. See? Here, the word means something like to feel or perceive something. It's doing a totally different job than in our first example, but it's still the same simple, effective word. And that is the secret sauce of Basic English. Why have a bunch of different words like perceive, discern, or intuit when one really hard-working word like sense can cover all that ground? It's all about efficiency. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Why does a system like Basic English even matter today? Well, it all comes down to the incredible power of simplicity. Looking at a word like sense through this lens actually teaches us a lot. It shows us that clarity is its own kind of power, that sometimes using fewer words can actually make your point stronger, not weaker. It proves that simple language can build bridges between people, and that to really master anything, you've got to understand the basics inside and out. And it's really important to get this right. The goal was never to limit language or to replace English as we know it. The idea was to build a strong, reliable foundation, a launchpad for anyone to start communicating clearly and effectively. And that leaves us with one last really fascinating thought to chew on. If we can say almost anything we need with just 850 words, it really makes you wonder, what are all those hundreds of thousands of other words really for?